These are all the 38 known kaiju in Kaiju number 8, and these monsters are so powerful, they can drive humanity into extinction.
Oh, hell no!
What's even crazier is, there's actually a kaiju that possesses waterbending skills. And there's a kaiju that can even use observation hockey. Just ripping off some other shows, no biggie. Yet these beasts hardly match Kaiju number 9. And what if I told you that I actually found and know the source of his powers? And you're gonna find out soon enough. There are basically two types of kaiju, the Yoju and Honju. But there's a special type that was introduced called Dai Kaiju that can go toe-to-toe with top-tier officers of the defense force. All these classes come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and are strong enough to destroy entire cities. Like the very first kaiju introduced in the series, the Philly no Soma, or the big-ass kaiju that's almost 200 feet. Another 60 feet and it's going to be the same height as Gypsy from Pacific Rim. Although it's massive and has a fortitude level of 6.0, our girl Mina, the captain of the 3rd Division, easily killed this salamander-like kaiju with a single shot. As you might know, the fortitude level is the defense force's way to measure the kaiju's power rating and possible threat to humanity, and each level has its own destructive power, which I'll explain one by one. But besides the Philonosoma, there are also ant-type kaiju that actually have pretty unique behavior. According to our boy, Captain Narumi, seeing these ant-type kaiju out in the open is super rare. Like, they usually pop up during tunnel construction or something, and this is probably the first time ever they've showed up in such huge numbers on the surface. They usually roll with their gangs, and when Kafka was fighting one of them, they could spit acid that can melt through cars and even the road. Kinda like Zeitgeist's power in the X-Force. Plus, these ants have really tough armor. When Kafka tried to punch them in his human form, it didn't work. Though compared to stronger officers, especially with numbered weapons, they're basically nothing. As we know, the numbered weapons are actually made from insanely strong kaiju. They are from a special class called Dai Kaiju. And I'm going to explain these different classes so you can understand how powerful they really are. There are also flying kaiju, like the wyvern type called Ryondactyl. And you know how massive they are? 14 meters in length. That's 46 feet, meaning they're slightly bigger than a T-Rex, which is around 12 meters or 40 to 41 feet. Now, if you think Rexy here had a chance fighting these wyverns, bro, think again. Because these Honju can also breathe fire. Due to their huge numbers and firepower, they almost destroyed the whole Tachikawa base during their raid. On top of that, the front of their body is incredibly tough to protect them while flying, but their back is weaker due to being lighter, making it their weak spot. They can even fuse together to make a massive flying Yoju bomb. What's pretty unique about the wyvern types is that they aren't actually team players. They usually fly solo. That'd be me on Sundays. I need that alone time on Sundays, you know what I'm saying? However, since there's someone much more powerful than them, they can be controlled through sonar waves. This makes it easy for a strong kaiju like Kaiju number 10 to boss them around. Since they have an estimated fortitude of about 6.2 to 6.4, their strength is considered a Honju class threat. There are actually two basic classes of kaiju, Yoju and Honju. They are usually categorized by their behaviors or fortitude level. Honju are usually the massive and powerful kaiju with a fortitude level that is typically above 6.0. A Honju with a power of 6.4 would require an entire platoon of defense force soldiers to defeat it, and according to Vice Captain Hoshina, only Captain Mina or he could defeat one alone in their base. That's a flex right there. And although the strength of the wyvern types is comparable to a Honju class, they are still pretty small. Unlike the massive Honju Mole Type 67, this kaiju first appeared in 1967, where it got its name. And according to Captain Jugo Ogata, it's been reappearing in the Bungitoge Pass mountain zone every 5 years. It may behave like a mole, but honestly, that monster doesn't look like one at all. This kaiju has massive sharp teeth and a spiky collar-like feature around its neck. What's even crazier is that it can transform into a tougher kaiju by spawning spikes on its body. And that's not all, it can even launch energy beams from its mouth like the freaking OG Godzilla. The massive Mole Type 67 with a fortitude level of 6.4 was used as a test subject for Leno Ichikawa, and his weaponized suit made from one of the strongest kaiju, number 6. He's actually come a long way ever since he joined the defense force. He's even considered as a prodigy with his insane improvements, surpassing even the likes of Kikoru Shinomiya, the strongest among the rookies. Before that though, Leno had a tough time during their selection exam when he dealt with another Honju type, the Primogenius. This kaiju is a jacked cattle-like beast, but with no eyes, and instead of nails, Primogenius actually has hooves on them fingers. Additionally, it also has horns that work as its uni organ, which is a source of the power of a kaiju. It can charge and launch powerful energy beams using its horns. Having no eyes, the Primigenius has super sharp hearing to make up for it. However, this also makes it vulnerable to stun grenades. The stomach or underbelly is thinner than the rest of its body, which is why shooting it was the key to defeating it. The Defense Force captured Primigenius Honju and all its Yoju for the secondary selection exam. Although the cat-like kaijus claimed 16 victims in Hachioji, Kikoru trashed most of them in the exam. But as soon as the exam was over, the mysterious Kaiju number 9 appeared and revived the massive Primigenius Honju. He even gave it a huge upgrade, reaching a fortitude level of 6.4. Kokoro was easily overpowered, even though she was able to unleash 46% of her combat suit's power. Luckily, our boy Kafka became Kaiju number 8, came to her rescue and smashed the revived Honju. Aside from the mole type and the cattle-like Honju, they're pretty cute compared to the ultra-massive Honju fungal type, Mixogastero. That gigantic walking mushroom kaiju doesn't have any striking abilities. But you see, some Honju's strengths are their capability of creating an army of Yoju. That's Mixogastero. After it emerged from the Kanawa Fault, the fungal-type Honju matured underground before it surfaced for its breeding phase in Sagamihara. And this kaiju unleashed a massive army of mini-fungal Yoju types called Phaneroplus. Yoju, or residual beast, is actually a smaller kaiju that usually rolls in large numbers, kind of like how ants swarm together. They can even have a fortitude level above 6.0, making them just as dangerous as a Honju, while still being considered Yoju. These Yoju can show up in different ways, like they might follow paths made by the Honju, latch onto them like baby kangaroos, or even be created and reproduced by them. The Phaneroplus is a perfect example of Yoju that were reproduced by a Honju. Even though they only have a fortitude level of 2.3, their sheer numbers are what make them so dangerous. The 3rd Division even deployed most of their troops to contain the kaiju, and this mission was actually the rookie task of Kafka's platoon. Interestingly, although they were just Yoju, they had been modified to have an organ capable of respawning another fungal Yoju even after its death. And that's because of the powers of Kaiju number 9, powers I'll dig deeper into in a bit. Although the streets of Sagamihara were flooded with Phaneroplus after the Honju Mixogastero got annihilated, the 3rd Division ultimately cleaned them all up. When the massive Honju Mold Type 67 reappeared, there were also smaller ones that tagged along, though it wasn't mentioned if these mold type Yoju were reproduced by the Honju or if they just came with the massive kaiju. The Trichonophila, on the other hand, is definitely a tag-along kaiju that likely appeared together with the Philinosoma. This one looks like a giant spider, but with a creepy face. Almost like Pike, you know, the spider-like chimera ant in Hunter x Hunter? Yeah, that one, but a lot bigger. It appeared in front of Kafka and Leno while they were wrapping up their cleanup of the massive reptile kaiju. It's got a fortitude level of 2.5 and stands about 10 meters tall. Basically as tall as a 3-story building, or like stacking 3 giraffes on top of each other. Thanks to Captain Mina, she shot it down and saved Kafka and Leno. This moment actually inspired Kafka to continue becoming a Defense Force officer and fight alongside his childhood friend, Mina. And when he took the selection exam with Ichikawa, they were tasked to eliminate the Primigenius Yoju and Honju as part of the 2nd section of their exam. Like its Honju counterpart, the Primigenius Yoju also has super sharp hearing to make up for having no eyes. But they don't have horns and their heads are kind of elongated, so they basically look like ripped bootleg versions of aliens in the movies. When the Primigenius Yojus were killed by the examinees, they were also brought back by Kaiju number 9. But as soon as Mina and Hoshina arrived at the site, due to the unusual revival of the Honju, they likely exterminated all these Yoju easily, despite their power rating increasing to a fortitude level of 3.8. However, these kaiju are just weaklings compared to the surge that appeared throughout the nation all at once. While the manga doesn't provide all the details, their huge numbers and strength made the entire defense force deploy all units and soldiers. For example, in Sumida, there's a lizard-like kaiju that almost ate a bride during her wedding. Luckily, Captain Gen came to their rescue and clapped the kaiju. There are also giant kaiju that appeared in Hachioji that look like the Pokemon Sandshrew. They've been targeting essential facilities like this locust-like kaiju in Minami Ward. And sausage-like kaiju even swarmed the tracks of Setagaya In Himeji City, Hyogo Prefecture, there's a squad of kaiju that look like T-Rexes with frills around their necks. Meanwhile, Osaka is dealing with giant crabs that have multiple eyes and massive mouths on their shells. Over in Sendai, a kaiju appeared that looks just like Godzilla, but with horns around its face. There's even a kaiju that looks like that creepy horse from Berserk. In Chapter 73, Vice Captain Hoshino also soloed a group of mantis-like kaiju in Chofu Airport. And in Oizumi, Captain Mina destroyed the enormous hollow-like kaiju. The crazy thing is, she's shooting all of them from Tachikawa, and that is 20 kilometers away from the target. Aside from the Hanju and Yoju, there's also the special category of kaiju known for their insane strength and power, hitting a fortitude level of at least 8.0, the Dai Kaiju class. They've been around since the Meireki era. And size doesn't usually determine their power. There are massive kaiju who can easily wipe out an entire city, and there are also humanoid kaiju capable of overpowering even the strongest in the entire defense force. During Kaiju No. 9's invasion, unidentified kaiju jumped into action and turned the tide of the battle in their favor, because these gigantic humanoid creatures actually have a fortitude level of 8.0. This automatically makes them Dai Kaiju. They were called the third wave, since they were the third surge of kaiju that rained down in several areas within the heat of the battle. In Chapter 97, when this mofo, Kaiju No. 9, started calling the shots, all of these skinny Dai Kaiju jumped into action and started shooting powerful energy blasts from their faces. The entire third wave appeared all over Tokyo to blast the exhausted officers and slow down Kaiju No. 8, making it hard for Kafka to rescue Mina from Kaiju No. 9. With a whole gang of them, these Dai Kaiju could easily destroy cities. As the third wave started wiping out the city and the remaining strength of the defense force, ironically, the 3rd Division came to the rescue. 3rd Division for the third wave, and started crushing all these Dai Kaiju. They were led by Leno, who upped his game with his new weaponized suit and weapons, powered by one of the identified Kaiju No. 6. Basically, my bro, let me just confirm this with you, okay? That all those kaiju from before we just talked about are actually nothing when compared to the special types of Dai Kaiju, the identified kaiju. These guys are literally monsters even among kaiju, and they usually have an insanely high fortitude level of 9.0 or higher. They were numbered by the Neutralization Bureau so that they can be easily recognized, just like the numbered villains in Bleach, the Arrancar armies, the Espada. But unlike those guys, the identified kaiju were numbered in the order they showed up. And most of these kaiju were weaponized after being defeated by the defense force in order to match the strength and powers of stronger kaiju in future battles. Man, doesn't this remind you of Quincades and Tokyo Ghoul? Like, those OP weapons are also made from monsters they're fighting. But before the defense force can use these insane numbered weapons, there has to be a compatible user for each one. What's interesting is that the identified kaiju's memories and visions are somehow stored within the weapon, and the user can access them when they wear the suit and armor. Just like what happened with Kikoru Shinomiya. When she used a weaponized suit made from an identified kaiju, she was able to see her mom, which according to Gen Narumi is the memory of the kaiju suit. It's almost like having a saved game with the weaponized suit, where you can see the previous user's record and stats. So far, only 15 identified Dai Kaiju have appeared throughout the series, and of those that were weaponized, the powers of Kaiju No. 3, 5, and 7 are still a mystery. Probably the dumbest and easiest identified Kaiju to kill was Kaiju No. 13, aka the Forrest Gump Kaiju, because the dude loves running. He even competed with cars on the highway when he first appeared. Don't get me wrong. This one's extremely strong too. He even took 1st Division platoon leader Shinonomi's attacks head on and smashed her weapon. Aside from his toughness and incredible strength, this blind and mute kaiju can charge from a distance and deliver a more powerful blow with his enlarged muscles and the momentum of his run. When this dude saw Kafka, he immediately created some distance between them so he could charge at Kafka. And as soon as he was in his running stance, his fortitude level hit 9.2. But when number 13 reached Kafka, bro just casually stopped his punch and instantly destroyed him like a wrecking ball. Another unique identified kaiju that appeared during the induced cataclysm is Kaiju No. 14. Unlike the usual beasts and monsters that the defense force faced, this one's a huge black monolith with 4 creepy-ass faces on each of its 4 corners. Think of it like Mount Rushmore, but with theater masks. Even though it's just floating around, it can unleash powerful blasts capable of destroying Tachikawa. Despite being a huge block and an easy target, it can dodge attacks by teleporting. On top of that, it's got a strong barrier that can withstand the defense force's barrage. But that ain't a problem for the strongest super giant class kaiju killer, Captain Mina Ashiro. After the HQ figured out the teleportation pattern of number 14, Mina easily shot right through it, even though she was targeted by the Kaiju's laser blasts. And after it was neutralized, the Kaiju turned into a sort of teleportation gate. Together with his twin, an M&M version, a white monolith version, they became a warp gate for Kaiju number 9, whose real target was actually Captain Ashiro and her insane marksman abilities. One of the first intelligent Kaiju was number 10, who targeted Tachikawa base with an army of wyvern types. And you know this guy's cocky because as soon as he arrived at Tachikawa base, he casually asks for the strongest soldier he can fight. Vice Captain Hoshina, being the one in charge, took on the Dai Kaiju with a fortitude level of 8.3. As the strongest close combat fighter in the whole defense force, Hoshina fought the Kaiju on equal footing. It was so tough that the Vice Captain noted its skin might be harder than Kaiju number 8's. And things escalated quickly when the Cyclops mofo transformed into a much larger beast, increasing its fortitude level to 9.0, making him the 10th identified Kaiju. This quickly turned the tide against Hoshina, who struggled against massive Kaiju. He was almost defeated in their battle, but luckily Captain Mina arrived and shot number 10 down. Kaiju number 10 remained alive, with only its head and core remaining. As cunning as it was, it asked for a deal to reveal Kaiju number 9's invasion plans, in exchange for being turned into a live, numbered weapon for Hoshina. Although it seemed kinda sus, the Vice Captain took the deal to gain intel about number 9's plans. This makes it the only weaponized Kaiju that's actually still alive. What's even crazier is it could control Hoshina's movements through the suit and even communicate with him. But here's the thing, even though this Kaiju was so strong, it revealed that it was just a prototype of an even stronger Kaiju, number 12. And as Hoshina's weaponized suit, they fought this powerful new Kaiju together. Now, they definitely weren't compatible in terms of decision making. For example, at Chofu Airport, Hoshina wanted to clear weaker Kaiju first, while number 10, being so battle hungry, wanted to charge head on at the stronger ones. They eventually synced up during the battle, unleashing 100% full release of the weaponized suit and ultimately defeating Kaiju number 12. During the induced cataclysm, 3 of the identified Kaiju were designed specifically to defeat the strongest defense force members. For example, number 15 entered the battle to destroy Kikoru, a user of a numbered weapon. When it first appeared in Shibuya, this Kaiju looked like a gross inside-out humanoid. It had brains all over its body. But when it joined the battle against the entire defense force, it for some reason looked like a ghoul version of Kikoru. This was likely due to the absorbed memories of Kaiju number 9 from the Director General and Kikoru's father, Isao Shinomiya. Aside from being a cheap copy, number 15 also had daddy issues. Wow, sounds like a lot of the girls I dated. Number 15 had issues like desiring a parent's love and affection. Wow, that sounds like all Asians. Actually, her creator, Kaiju number 9, used these emotions to make it strong enough to defeat Kikoru. As a Dai Kaiju with a fortitude level of 9.0, Kaiju number 15 was so powerful that with a single attack, it easily annihilated multiple defense force members. Along with its destructive powers, it was also capable of matching the speed of the fastest numbered weapon, number 4. But that's not all. This Kaiju could also attack with psychogenic powers. According to Keiji Itami, the Kaiju targeted Kikoru's weakest spot, her family issues. This only shows that these Kaiju are totally improving and adapting to the strength and abilities of both humans and other Kaiju. Ultimately, Kikoru overcame the mental hack from Kaiju number 15 using Natsu's powers, power of friendship. Kaiju number 15 was surprised that its depression powers didn't work and was completely dominated by Kikoru. Another member of the Hard Counters Kaiju was number 12, and it was the final version of the prototype number 10. Just imagine how strong this monster is, considering that number 10, having a fortitude level of 9.0, was just a freaking prototype for it. Even its overall appearance was an improved version. It wasn't like going from iPhone 15 to iPhone 15 Pro. It was like going from iPhone 11 to iPhone 15 Pro. This Kaiju was extremely powerful in close combat. It was capable of overpowering Hoshina, who was wearing a weaponized number 10 suit, and even managed to destroy the Vice Captain's twin blades. However, as you know, our bro ain't that easy to defeat. He had another ace up his sleeve. He switched to a different technique using a single katana and managed to cut off number 12's arm. But hold up, what's even crazier is that the new and improved Kaiju number 12 became like Kakashi and copied Hoshina's single blade form. Even though his back was against the wall for most of the battle, Hoshina was able to launch a combination attack with number 10 to completely defeat Kaiju number 12. The third one, and probably the strongest among the siblings of the identified kaiju created by number 9, was number 11. Just like other Dai Kaiju, it has the ability to enlarge the muscles in its arms, which are powerful enough to send Captain Narumi flying with just a single punch. The fish-like kaiju was created to be a tough matchup against Gen Narumi and his numbered weapon because this mofo actually has water-bending abilities. And that ain't the worst part. Kaiju number 11 acquired the memories of director Isao Shinomiya, which made him familiar with the fighting style of the 1st Division captain. That's why Gen was almost trashed by Kaiju number 11. But damn, give my boy some credit, cause it wasn't enough to defeat Narumi. Our boy had a trump card. He upped his game when he improved Kaiju number 1's powers and unlocked observation haki. I mean, the guy could see the future because of his foresight abilities. Narumi, considered Japan's number 1 anti-kaiju combatant, could see all the attacks of Kaiju number 11, which ultimately led to a huge W against a kaiju with a fortitude level of 9.0. With his combat skills and expertise in numbered weapons, he took Kikoru Shinomiya, whom he called his dumb disciple, under his wing. Even though she's just a rookie, she was given the weaponized suit of Kaiju number 4, which was actually first used by her mom, Hikari Shinomiya, the former 2nd Division captain. Kaiju number 4 was regarded as one of the fastest the defense force had ever faced. Once weaponized, it became the fastest among the numbered weapons and the only one capable of flight. Sadly, Hikari died from an extremely dangerous mission against a massive Kaiju number 6, which is considered to be the king of Kaiju. For a long time, the suit didn't have a compatible user, until Director General Isao and Hikari's daughter Kikoru turned out to be the next one in line. With this insane speed, she was able to travel straight from HQ to the battle area and take down the Kaiju in the blink of an eye. Like her mother, Kikoru also wields a massive customized weapon, given only to those with exceptional combat abilities. A battle axe made from Kaiju cells that produces shockwaves with every strike. After being trained by Gen Narumi, she was able to unleash a full release power of 84% using the weaponized suit in a short period of time. During the induced cataclysm, Kikoru was given the difficult task of neutralizing Kaiju number 15, a Kaiju that was copied after her. As I started discussing earlier, one of the special things about the Kaiju number 4 suit is that it was able to imprint the memory of its previous user, Hikari. When Kikoru started using the suit, she was able to see the ghost of her mom. Even though Kikoru's power level now is among the ranks of the strongest soldiers in the defense force, she even said that she could see her mom's skills and stats are still greater than hers. She could see Kaiju number 4's reaction, saying stuff like, "What a bummer." But as her fight with Kaiju number 15 dragged on, she slowly caught up and finally unleashed 94% of her suit's power. It wasn't just about her physical abilities. She also overcame the mental torture from Kaiju number 15 and totally owned her rival among the Kaiju. She didn't miss a beat and quickly bragged about this feat to her master, Narumi, who even answered by trashing number 11 using his numbered weapon from Kaiju number 1. Kaiju number 1 was the first one to have a numbered codename with its broken ability to use the Sharingan. Well, I mean, with its distinct eyes all over its body, it can actually predict a living thing's actions before it even moves. That's why Kaiju number 1 was capable of unleashing inescapable attacks. And it actually looks like a ripped Shukaku, the one-tailed beast of Gaara, but with Sharingan eyes all over its body. When it died, the Kaiju's retinas were used to create the first numbered weapon, which is currently in the hands of the strongest member of the defense force, 1st Division Captain Gen Narumi. Since this dog can release an insane 98% of the combat suit's power, he can unleash full release, drawing out the full power of his numbered weapon. That's why he can see through things and pinpoint the weak spots of his enemies because of his enhanced vision. And using his other customized weapon, the gun sword marked GS-3305, he can easily destroy Kaiju by shooting and slashing them with powered up shockwaves. And that's not all. Captain Narumi is the strongest in the defense force for a reason. He managed to take the abilities of the weaponized Kaiju to a whole nother level. From the pseudo-foresight of Kaiju number 1, he created his own advanced foresight. He made the abilities of the Kaiju into an observation haki, like literally the ability to see the future by sensing the movements of electrons and changes in temperature and terrain, on top of Kaiju number 1's powers to sense the movements of life forms. He became so powerful that he even defeated Kaiju number 11, a Dai Kaiju with a fortitude level of 9.0 that was specifically designed to adapt to Narumi's abilities and powers. But before Narumi, previous captain of the 1st Division, Isao Shinomiya was once considered the strongest soldier the Defense Force had ever seen. He wielded the weaponized Kaiju No. 2. When it was still alive, this monster was so powerful that it was capable of threatening an entire city back in 1972. It kinda looked like a rock-plated Godzilla, capable of unleashing destructive sonic blasts. And when it became a weaponized suit and gauntlet, Isao was able to use attacks based on Kaiju No. 2's powers, such as sonic blasts and force blasts, which are super high levels of electromagnetic energy. The weaponized suit made Isao so strong that he's literally a human Dai Kaiju when he activates full release. He even fought Kafka, aka Kaiju No. 8, who is basically so broken that he has a fortitude reading of a 9.8. Hold on my bro, cause I'll get to Kafka real soon. Isao even dominated Kafka for most of the fight thanks to squadron-style martial arts combined with the powers of the numbered weapon. He actually easily exposed Kafka's core, even though Kaiju No. 8's body is extremely tough. What's even crazier is that Director General Isao Shinomiya was already way past his prime, yet the battle between him and Kaiju No. 8 was so intense that the extra fortified shelter began to collapse, even though the shelter was built to withstand a fortitude level of 10.0. Due to this insane power from No. 2, Kaiju No. 9 planned on claiming it back. He even planned on absorbing Isao's body, using it as a new host, but Kikuro's dad wouldn't let that happen easily. Despite the HQ being ambushed, he almost defeated No. 9, even though it had snuck up on them. According to Kaiju No. 9, even its powered up body couldn't handle an attack from the full release power of Kaiju No. 2. It's just how insanely strong the general was. Sadly, Isao was absorbed by No. 9 before Kafka and Gen could rescue him. Because of his loss, the Defense Force utilized all their possible resources, including the use of the weapon made from the king of Kaiju, No. 6. This massive beast was an incredibly powerful and dangerous creature, with a fortitude level of 9.6. It was responsible for a huge disaster, resulting in one of the most catastrophic events ever, including the death of 2nd Division Captain Hikari Shinomiya, who ultimately sacrificed her life to be able to take down Kaiju No. 6. Its attacks even caused a massive snowstorm in Odawara, earning it the reputation of a symbol of despair. When No. 6 was turned into a weapon, the Defense Force struggled to find anyone suitable for their trump card. Even as a numbered weapon, it was strong enough to knock down talented officers like Leno Ichikawa. But even though he was knocked on his first attempt to wear the weapon, Ichikawa's insane growth as a fighter enabled him to use No. 6's suit and made it combat ready in just a month. The weaponized suit itself emits cold energy, and when fully accessed, Leno was able to unleash Aokiji-like powers, instantly freezing everything in his surroundings. The No. 6 weapon was so broken that Leno's body was slowly being damaged as he couldn't handle the increase in the unleashed combat power of the suit when he field tested it against the Mole Type 67. But with the help of his buddy, Iharu, Leno was able to control its powers. And during the induced cataclysm, he led the battle against the powerful third wave Dai Kaijus with the support of all members of their Riki platoon and backed up Kafka in saving their captain, Mina. But even if Leno's power is the king of Kaiju itself, bro, the name of the series is not Kaiju No. 6, it's Kaiju No. 8, aka Kafka Hibino, who mysteriously had a major plot change just because of this bug, the unnamed flying mini Kaiju. And unlike the usual Kaiju, this bug can talk and communicate even inside Kafka's mind. It also managed to control Kafka when he went into rampage mode against the Director General. Although its origin and powers are still a mystery, it changed Kafka's life when it entered his body, making him an insanely powerful Kaiju with a fortitude level of 9.8. It's actually pretty ironic because ever since he was a kid, Kafka wanted to be a member of the Defense Force, exterminating all Kaijus alongside Mina. And he was able to join the force after he was buffed with Kaiju powers. He easily destroyed small-time Kaiju, like the Spider Yoju, literally one-punching them to pieces like Saitama. But that's nothing compared to this crazy ability. I mean, that's pretty crazy. During the selection exam, he showed off a sneak peek of his powers against the revived Primogenius. He was able to transform parts of his body, he turbocharged his arms, and released a punch with massive energy that totally turned a 6.4 Hanju class to dust. And using the same turbocharged arm, he even flew and punched a huge Yoju bomb away during the Tachikawa base raid. With his experience and knowledge of Kaiju, he was accepted as a cadet in the Defense Force. But as soon as his first mission was over, he met Kaiju No. 9, who almost killed Leno and Iharu. Our bro Kafka was so angry he easily beat the hell out of No. 9. Even though this Kaiju is capable of insane regeneration, if it weren't for the officers who arrived at the scene, the series would probably be over today. But here's the thing, if number 9 was a kaiju creator, how come he didn't know about Kafka? Actually, number 9 was shocked to see number 8 with his insane kaiju powers, siding with the humans. Additionally, number 9 previously didn't know that number 8 was a human, though 9's not that surprised about it. Now, there's actually a crazy theory that suggests there was another parasite bug that created number 9, and just like Kafka, it originally hosted another human. That is why number 9 wasn't able to recognize Kafka, because they're practically the same, coming from a single parasite bug, or other parasite bugs that might be existing without their knowledge. When Kafka was transferred to the Defense Force HQ facilities, he even fought almost on equal footing with the dog, Isao Shinomiya. But honestly, Kafka was dominated most of the time in their clash because he was holding back and didn't really want to fight Kikuro's dad. But as soon as the mysterious parasite larva took over his body, he slowly overpowered even the full release of Isao's weapon, to the point that Kafka almost killed the Director General. Luckily, he overcame the mental battle against the bug and stopped the fight before the whole HQ facility collapsed. After the devastating clash, Kafka was assigned to be part of the 1st Division alongside Gen to create a powerful division that's capable of beating all kaiju and cataclysms. And to fight the mighty Kaiju number 9, Hoshina taught Kafka the squadron-style martial arts of the Defense Force. Since Kaiju number 9 absorbed the powers of number 2 and the skills of Isao, who perfected the squadron style, Kafka modified the technique to Hoshina style. Now the thing is, the creator of the Cataclysm actually has the ability to learn and evolve during the fight, kind of like Big Raga's adaptability in JJK. So ultimately, to defeat the kaiju boss, Kafka has to use a unique technique that number 9 hasn't even seen, or get the support of the whole Defense Force and the strongest numbered and customized weapons users to gang up on this mofo. Because you see, Kaiju number 9 is like a virus. He can learn from humans and evolve into a more superior kaiju. As a source of the induced cataclysm, he has modified his kaiju creations to adapt to the strength of the Defense Force, making them stronger and tougher. Like when he created the identified kaiju number 11 to 15, this kaiju can even shapeshift into a human after consuming and taking over a body. We first saw him in action when he modified the location of the core and even placed a reproductive organ on the fungal type Yoju. After he almost got destroyed by Kafka, he laid low to rebuild and transformed into a stronger version. He reappeared against the 1st Division with a bunch of Ant-type kaiju, and as soon as he sensed the powers of number 8, he immediately went for it. But to his surprise, he actually saw a human. Just like I've been spitballing about number 8 and number 9's origin theories, there's also a theory about number 9's purpose behind his crazy experiments on humans and his desire for a world of all kaiju. The theory goes that since number 9 may have been originally hosting a human, what if all his crazy experiments and curiosity came from his desires to learn more about them, and even be superior to humans themselves? These are possible because of his virus-like nature, which always tends to evolve and mutate. After a long existence, he learned different kinds of abilities. Like aside from creating kaiju, he was also capable of merging with them, like when he combined with an ant-type and just used it like a tank. Interestingly, he could also create copies of himself, the ones he called Beta and Gamma, who fought Kafka and Narumi. These copies were as strong as number 9 was before morphing into his current form. What's even crazier is, Kaiju number 9 has the ability to absorb and gain the strength of other kaiju. When he took Isao's body and the numbered weapon too, he even had access to Isao's memories. On top of that, he can adapt to any attack after he sees and learns it. Like, this guy is way too overpowered. He's just playing with our boy Kafka. And with the powers of 2 identified kaijus, he's capable of overpowering even the might of the strongest, Kaiju number 8.